Just a quick one before we get into this episode. If you're in the UK and you use supplements, I'd highly recommend checking out Reflex Nutrition, where they're giving up to 40% on all their range if you use the code PTRNT at checkout. I've been using Reflex for nearly a decade, with their microwave being one of my favorite whey proteins. It's grass-fed, hormone-free, and digests so well compared to most on the market. Check out their full supplement range, including all your transformation basics and plant-based alternatives on reflexnutrition.com and use the code PTRNT at checkout for up to 40% off. It's not long left now until the new book, Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life, is released. Sunday, 24th of May is the big day, and I can't wait for you to get your copy. Make sure you subscribe to our email list and social media for updates on book bonuses, previews, competitions, and giveaways. Exciting times ahead. On today's episode of RNT Fitness Radio, I'm joined by Jay Alderton, author of 2 books, Mindset with Muscle and Meltdown, creator of the Trainermind app, and founder of Train with Jay and the J8 Challenge. In this episode, we dive into the strategies to keep yourself physically and mentally healthy during lockdown, the mindset of how to approach the situation, and the importance of adopting what Jay's coined as permanent thinking. We also discuss the continuum of being selfish and selfless, morning and evening routines, and how to protect your number one asset, you. There's plenty of golden nuggets to pick out from Jay here. If you're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and always chasing your tail, this is one you won't want to miss. How are you coping in this time? What are you doing to keep yourself mentally and physically strong in lockdown?
So I think the first thing is I think one of the biggest things to understand is I actually, I'm in a very good place. I was in the British Army for 7 years. So, I'm used to being in kind of weird positions, kind of isolation, lockdown, all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of perspective there as well. But at the same time, when I think back to the army, we spent a long time doing skills and drills and practicing things that might not happen. And so when we deployed on operational tour, you're kind of excited because everything that you've been doing for the last few years, you get to put into practice. And very much what I do with myself and my job, I talk about mindset, I talk about productivity, I talk about habits and routines, and I practice these daily. So when something like this happens, you kind of double down on the things that you do because these are the things that are going to get you through. Having those strong built habits, doing the things that make you feel good each day, reflecting on things. And, now is the time to really do that, which a lot of people don't do. When they have a lot of uncertainty in their lives, when they have a lot of shit hit the fan moments, they kind of go to rat shit because they haven't been doing the practice and doing the work and really understanding why they're doing it. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Exercise, okay, it makes us look good, but it also makes us feel good. Meditation, gratitude, all this woo-woo joss stick stuff that people really don't understand until they start doing it for long periods of time, or at least, for a month at least, is so important. But people tend to do the opposite. They tend to, not do the habits and routines. They tend to not exercise now because they've got an excuse because the gyms are closed, and they tend to spend a lot of time on social media and scrolling the internet, which is probably the worst thing you can do in this situation.
Absolutely. What are some of the exercises and drills that you're doing back in the army that have carried over and been so useful now?
I would say the main thing from the army is really just discipline. And the way that I kind of talk about discipline is doing things that you don't want to do and doing them anyway. And I think that's one of the most important things to do. John Maxwell has a phenomenal quote, and he says that motivation gets you going and discipline keeps you growing. And now is the time to be disciplined to do things, even though you don't want to do it. None of us, I don't know about you, Akash, but I don't want to work out at home.
Absolutely not.
I want to go to the gym and lift some weights, but the reality is that is my reality at the moment. So I need to adapt to it, and I need to look at what it is that I can do at home to continue on progressing. So I think it's having the discipline to do exercise, even though my situation's changed and I don't like doing it, because the actual benefit from doing it is so much more powerful. And it's the same with a lot of things that I do. I think the art of success is showing up every day, regardless of how you feel. And I think that is so important now at the moment, because the reality is, there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment, and a lot of people are grabbing towards instant gratification stuff. So eating food, watching Netflix, and not doing stuff that's actually going to make them feel better in the long term. So something that we need to kind of think of now is something that I kind of coined last week, and it's permanent thinking. This situation isn't permanent, but if it was, what would you be doing today to change your habits and routines? What if I told you today that there is no longer any gyms and the only way that you're going to get fit and healthy is to work out at home? And what's going to happen now is the way that you do it is going to be very different. You're not going to half-ass things. You're going to go fully in because you want to see the progression. I can do a lot of body weight stuff, but I've gone onto Amazon and I've bought pulley systems and sandbags and stuff like that because I've gone, right, I like lifting weights. I like lifting heavier weights as we go over time. I like building muscle. So how am I going to do that at home? And when you understand the fundamentals behind something, you're like, right, okay, now I need to find things to lift above my head that progressively get stronger or heavier, sorry. So when you think permanently, you change a lot more quickly. And this isn't going to be permanent, but I know when we get out of this, I'm still going to have made good progression even in this situation.
Absolutely. What are the permanent thinking strategies are you doing, especially from a mental health and mindset point of view?
I think one of the most important things is finding things that make you feel good. And we need to be very much in tune with our feelings and our habits and routines. And a lot of that comes from journaling. A lot of that comes from reflection. If I'm feeling angry for the day or jealous or any kind of feeling, a lot of it comes down to my habits and routines. And it's really dialing in why I'm feeling like that. What has caused that? It could have been something that I've read, something that I've listened to, something that I've seen. And really, that's not the external thing's fault. It's the internal, because I'm triggered by that. So something that I ask myself every day is, what triggered you today and how did you deal with it? So a lot of it is very much self-awareness, and a lot of it's writing things down. And, everybody in this kind of lockdown goes through good days and bad, but you don't learn anything from a perfect week. You don't learn anything from a good day. You learn it from a bad day. So if I've had a bad day, I kind of write down why I've had a bad day. And usually the answer is sitting there. I've spent too much time on social media. I've spent too much time listening to people that I don't, value in my life, like conspiracy theories and people who are arguing online and all of this kind of stuff. And then realize that that's my fault because I've spent the time and invested time in that when I could have spent it somewhere else.
Yeah, very much all the instant gratification problems that you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And they feel good in the short term, eating crap, scrolling through social media, not really absorbing anything of use, and smashing through the entire series of The Tiger King on Netflix.
Is that what you're watching right now then?
No, the only reason I got into it is, as of anything, right? So many people are talking about it and there's lots of memes, and I need to get up to date. I need to keep up to date with my memes, Akash. So I had to watch a little bit just to understand the context. It's fascinating. But no, I watched the first episode and I've just been like, well, it's okay. I prefer the memes than the actual show.
I've seen it on trending now, but I haven't dived into it yet.
Yeah. So I've had a browse to get the context, but no. I mean, for me, I enjoy. I switch off social media after 8 p.m. and I very much enjoy just getting away from the world and a bit of escapism through Netflix by watching it for an hour in the evenings with the wife, and just into Scorpion at the moment. I think it's Scorpion. It's a really good TV series, actually. So
I'll
just
smashing
through that at the moment through Netflix.
I'm on Mad Men at the moment.
What's that one?
Mad Men?
Oh, Mad Men. Yes, the ad agency ones. Yeah. I've dipped in and out of some episodes, but I think I need to make a bit of more of a commitment to that one.
Yeah, it's really good. So you mentioned your evening routine is, you switch off at 8 p.m. Then you're off the grid, escaping Netflix, chilling with your wife. What are you doing in the mornings? Before we got on air, you were talking about your sea dipping. Very briefly. What else are you doing to keep yourself grounded?
For me, an evening routine is just as important as a morning routine. Evening routine, of course, I down tools after 8. I don't have my mobile phone upstairs. I have an alarm clock. I've got a notepad and pen, which I have by my bed, and I read a chapter a night. All of these things contribute to me being able to get to sleep. Because I think a lot of people scroll through their social media of an evening in bed, which causes them maybe to stay up an extra half an hour, 45 minutes, which compounded over time reduces your sleep down. So I have a very strong kind of habit to get to bed around 9:30. So I'm up early in the morning because I love my mornings. I'm very much an early morning person. I get up early, always go for a walk. That's my one time out a day on the lockdown. So I live about 10 minutes from the beach. Walk down the beach. At the moment, funny enough, I usually use that time to listen to an audiobook or a podcast, and I spend that time listening. But kind of the last couple of weeks I've spent it listening to music. And the reason being is I want to be thinking my own thoughts rather than absorbing somebody else's. So I've spent a lot of my time just with background music on, just processing things. And that's kind of the time that my brain comes alive. I tend to get down to the seafront about 6:45, where I go on Facebook Live, and anything that I've been pondering for the 15-minute walk down the beach, I talk about on a Facebook Live. So that's kind of my content produced for the day, and also things that have got out of my head. Because usually when I have a concept or a thought, and I've said it out loud, it kind of, I better understand it. And I also get to hear kind of my audience's response to it to see if it makes sense or not.
Yeah.
So, and then straight after that, jump in the sea. That is a morning thing that I do, jump in, freezing cold. Something that I do not want to do every day, which is why I do it, because it comes back down to that discipline of doing something I don't want to do. An important thing to note, which I learned from two good people I know on Instagram called The Happy Pair. They're two Irish twins that jump in the sea every single day. And they said the person that goes in the sea is very different to the person that comes out. And that's so true, because I don't want to go in there. I go in there, it's cold, but after about 45 seconds, it feels good. And when I walk out, I've got a massive smile on my face. Same very much with exercise, I would say as well. We very much don't want to exercise, especially at home, but once we've done it, we always feel good. So I do that and then finish my walk and then come back and plan out my day, really, depending on what it is that I've got to do. Speak to the team remotely at the moment, let them know what we've got going on, and schedule out all my stuff for the day.
Awesome. So it's very much grounded with a morning and evening routine to keep yourself from meltdown.
Yeah, and I think it is important. It's important to really nail in those habits and routines, but also factor in things that kind of are fun, that have kind of an element of uncertainty, and having that free time as well. I've got a busy household at the moment with a 6-year-old and an 11-month-old that's just learned how to crawl. So they keep me on my toes.
Awesome. So you've had a book come out in the last 6 months called Meltdown.
Yes.
Came out in December, called Meltdown. And you talk about the meltdown management skill inside and ways to get yourself from coming from meltdown. Do you want to dive into this a bit more as to, firstly, why you wrote the book, and then what some of the key points around preventing a meltdown are that you've learned upon? Yeah,
so kind of the book talked about my journey in 2016. I had a very successful year. I built a new business, built my dream gym facility, set a new world record pushing a sled for 24 hours, raised over 10,000 for charity, which was insane. Wrote a book, my book before that, and basically had a very successful year. And upon looking at the end of the year, I'd realized that although I'd achieved a lot business-wise, like personal-wise, I hadn't. And I had a massive high and then kind of a massive low in December, which involved me kind of separating from my wife, moving out, and trying to find myself again and realize what went wrong. And a lot of it was a realization of I'd spend a lot of my time being very selfless for others, not being selfish with my own time, and most importantly, not spending time with my family and connecting with people. I was very much like a robot in 2016, just looking to tick boxes and get to the next level. So it was a massive learning experience for me that I had to kind of reconnect with the people around me and reconnect with myself. And that was kind of what the book was about, as in, I thought I had it all figured out when I realized that I hadn't, and kind of my steps through kind of finding my identity again and getting myself back to what it was all about. And the real kind of test for that was 2019, last year, where went through lots of changes, built a new business, wrote a new book, broke a Guinness World Record, so did another incredible endurance event for charity. My son was born as well. So it was a lot busier than 2016. Only without the meltdown, because I'd switched my mobile phone off after 8, I had weekends off and spent plenty of time with my family. And it was kind of a realization that, more is not always better, and balance is key. And what I mean by balance is you're never going to get anything perfect, but it's just having non-negotiables in your life where you're understanding that sometimes you need to do the opposite of what it is that you want to do. Sometimes when, you're working hard and you want more success, the answer isn't work harder. Sometimes it's actually learning how to delegate things and work less, and actually understanding that, having rest is a good thing. Getting 8 hours sleep a night is a good thing. Doing all these things that you know that you should do but don't do are good things. And now it's building up the habits to effectively do them. So that's essentially what the book was all about.
And what was the journey from the meltdown in 2016 to getting there? What were you doing in the 3 years in between to ultimately find what works for you? Because now you've got those, the weekend off, 8 p.m. social media's off. What did you do in between to cultivate that level of self-awareness?
I think you need to experiment a lot. I think you need to understand the things that you weren't doing and developing new habits and routines, because it was very hard, and it still is time to switch off, to not do work, especially when you enjoy doing it. I very much love helping people, but there becomes a law of diminishing returns where you end up helping so many people that you don't help yourself. And a great quote, which I love, is that you can't serve others from an empty vessel. So if you're constantly drained and you're not filling up your own vessel, how do you expect to best serve others? So I kind of went on this kind of journey to take time off, to reflect, to do the things that I, need to do, and also find new habits and routines. A lot for me was cold water exposure, helped with that discipline of doing something that I don't want to do, such as switch off and do things, and seeing the benefits from doing it. Journaling my thoughts, both good and bad. You tend to just want to focus on the good things rather than the bad. And it was a kind of a realization where, I understood that you don't learn anything from a perfect week. It's usually through the tough times that you learn the most about yourself. And, it's quite prevalent for where we are at the moment, where, a lot of people look at this time as, a bad time, when in actual fact, this could be the very thing that sets you apart from the rest. And, if I look back in my life from when my life changed for good, when I started to become a personal trainer after being made redundant, and that was 8 years ago, at that time was that feeling of being made redundant and not having any money and not knowing what to do was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. So it's always looking at opportunities in everything that you do, and essentially this is a lot of deep work for yourself, and it comes down to just being honest with yourself, both for your strengths and for your weaknesses too.
At what point did you start feeling like you were turning a corner?
I think when I started to see the benefits from doing less. When I started my business first, you tend to be new to it all. So you're always motivated, you're always excited because there's always new things there. And as you go over your journey, and a lot of, business people will see that, they seem to become a bit stale, as if they've been there, they've done that, they've got this t-shirt, they've done everything. And people turn kind of very skeptical and very, not willing to learn new things. And a lot of that comes down to exhaustion and overworking and losing their creativity because they're not spending enough time with themselves and working outside of their business. So what I found is having more time off, being away from my business, allowed me to get that creativity and energy back, which actually, when I came back to my business, I could do things at a higher level. And that's really what changed for me, is to see, oh, okay, so you can take the weekend off. It doesn't affect business, and actually it improves it, because now you see, things are getting more views and attention. Your clients are happier. So I think a lot of people need to see the benefits in doing, stuff which at the moment they think is going to hinder them, which to a lot of business owners, it's taking time off.
And what about your family? How do they respond to it? When did you realize the relationship was getting better?
I think what myself and my wife did, I spent a lot of time reconnecting with her, going back on dates and things like that, and going on. Myself and my wife, we went on 2 holidays by ourselves, and of those 2 holidays, I switched my mobile phone off for a week completely. And that was a real powerful thing for me to do, because I remember in 2017 we went on holiday, and I literally switched my mobile phone off for a week, and that I hadn't been off social media on my phone for 3 straight years. And an amazing thing happened. Of course, you're scared to do it, but then you realize, you kind of start smelling the roses, really. You realize how much time that you've spent on your mobile phone, how much thinking time you've lost. And also, after that week when I switched on my phone, it actually only took me about 15 minutes to catch up with the world. So actually challenging myself to do that enabled me to connect better with my wife, to have better thoughts and feelings, and actually a realization that you don't need to be on all the time. So that was a massive thing. Kind of disconnecting from the world to reconnect with yourself is so important.
How did your body react? Because I did something similar last summer for the first time, and my whole body broke down.
I tell you what, I mean, during 2016, I did go on holiday, and I was forced to go on it, and I did not want to do it. And I remember the first kind of couple of days, I slept for like 10 hours. And my creativity started to come back, and my body was just like, thank fuck for that. So I kind of forgot about that until I started doing it more each week. And I think that was a kind of realization. Something I do now, not obviously at the moment pre-pandemic, but I have what's called Phone Swap Thursday. So I switch my mobile phone off on a Thursday, and I head up to a spa for the day and do fuck all, but read and write. And I spent about 5 hours there. And the first time that I invested in this spa and did it, I felt really guilty, because everyone's working while I'm up there, getting a massage and reading a book. But now I look at it as an essential investment, because you don't need to wait until you're broken to fix yourself. Small things done consistently produce big results. So just that one day or one afternoon, like morning, afternoon a week, has had significant impact as well.
How do you step away from the feeling of guilt and the chasing that never-ending ladder, essentially? Because that's what you're talking about here.
Yeah, I think understanding that, life is a never-ending ladder. So even when, if I go back to 2016, you get to the end of the year and you've ticked every single box that you said that you wanted to do for the year and some, and then suddenly you're miserable. You realize that life's a never-ending quest for box ticks. So that tells you to be patient with things, enjoy the process, to do the things that you're uncomfortable with doing on a daily basis, but also be patient, because I'm 34 now, hoping to be on this planet maybe another 65 years. And if you're looking at that, then if I just do small daily habits every day, I'll get there eventually. And actually, to be honest, if it takes an extra 5 years and I enjoy it, or it takes an extra 10 years and I enjoy it, I'm going to not look back with regret, because this was kind of the reality of ticking boxes and getting to your goal of whatever it is, financial success or that, and realizing actually that wasn't what you wanted. Because it's all very well having money in the bank, but you're fucking miserable now because your family's left you because all you cared about was that.
Where do you think that comes from?
What's that? The realization.
I know this feeling that you struggle with, and a lot of us do.
I think a lot of people aren't honest with why they want certain things. We want success because people don't actually understand why they want this success. And I think a lot of it comes down to they want to prove themselves to other people. They want to, get approval of others to say, oh, look at that person, they're going places and stuff like that. But then you're reliant on outside influences for your happiness. And the difference now is I kind of wake up and go, do you know what? I've got everything I need right here. It's all good. People are getting, losing their shit in lockdown. I'm like, hang on a minute. I've got a business which I run online. I've got my wife and my kids under my roof. I've got plenty of food. I've got a laptop with a high-speed internet connection and fucking Netflix. I'm all right. What more do I need? It's cool. And when you have that kind of thought process and actually are grateful for things that you've already got, anything else is a bonus. And when you approach life as, anything else is a bonus, then you tend to be more relaxed about things. You let things flow a bit more, and actually you achieve a lot more success because you're not, you're not desperate for something to happen. You're not frustrated when you don't get there. And I've always found that being in that kind of place, you produce a lot more success because more people want to be around somebody like that. And actually you kind of have more balance. So more things happen because, if any extreme that you go has sacrifices, as you know. And my life now is based on what am I willing to sacrifice to get to the next level. And maybe 5 years ago, I was willing to sacrifice everything to achieve that. And now I have kind of more of a list of things that I don't want to do than a list that I do want to do, which ironically has produced a lot more success. So,
mind sharing some of these not to do lists?
I don't want to work after 8. I don't want to work most weekends. I don't want to spend long periods of time away from my family, regardless of how much money is being offered. I don't want to work for other people. After spending 7 years in the army, I don't like being told what to do. I like to create my own life on my own rules. And I don't like Android users. No, I'm joking. Kind of joking, but so I think it actually helps you with making the right decision with things. There's an interesting thing that people say is that when you don't know what to eat and what restaurant to go to, it's actually easier to tell people what you don't want to eat so you can make better decisions.
Yeah.
Because if you sit there going, I want this, I want this, I want this, it's just like, well, hang on a minute. Okay, you want that, you want. What don't we want? And it's just removing choice. And I think this day and age, this is the biggest problem with anxiety, overwhelm, and procrastination is that we can do anything. We can learn anything on YouTube now. We've got Google at our fingertips. And to be honest, what everyone is saying at the moment in this lockdown is learn new things. And people turn around and go, what should I learn? It's like, you can learn anything. And it's like, yeah, but what? Anything. And and it's paralysis analysis, or analysis by paralysis. Because we can do anything, we do fuck all. And I think what people need to do is just make a decision on what they want to do and then just do it. And that's really a choice. If we have a menu in a restaurant and it's 8 pages long, we don't know what to choose. We jump onto Netflix at 6 p.m. at night and it takes us 25 minutes to think, oh, do we watch Mad Men or do we watch The Tiger King? And we just need to make a fucking choice. And once you've been clear on the things that you want in your life, it's so much easier just to make progress with that because you're just hyper focused on one or two things.
Absolutely. And then how do you keep yourself in check along the way? So I think you've talked about it in the book about keeping yourself in check on the 4 legs of the stool. I think the analogy, 4 legs of the stool. Yeah.
I mean, the way that I kind of do my meltdown management scale is health, wealth, productivity, and connectivity. A lot of people aren't very good at journaling, but they can do this in kind of less than 15, 20 seconds. And it's just writing down on a piece of paper, health, wealth, productivity, and connectivity, and rating yourself between 1 to 5, 1 being horrendous, 5 being amazing. And these 4 factors are so important, and you need all 4, for health and for happiness. So understanding which one that you're falling short on knows where needs the most attention. So if I go back to 2016, if I look at health, wealth, and productivity and connectivity, so these are the 4. I would say my health was quite good. Physical health, mental health, maybe not as high. Wealth was good. I was building a new business and getting lots of clients and success. Productivity, getting lots of boxes ticked. Probably I would have rated myself 5 for productivity. Connectivity though, 1. And if I had done this kind of management scale throughout 2016 on a daily and weekly basis, I would have found out that I was very weak in one area. And that essentially, because I ignored it for a year, was essentially my downfall. So it is this. Health is both physical and mental, and rate yourself between 1 and 5. Wealth is not just financial, it's social. Social wealth is important as well. Having a good network around you it makes you extremely wealthy. Productivity, are you getting things done or are you procrastinating? Rate yourself between 1 and 5. And then connectivity, are you actually spending time with human beings, which is hard at the moment, I know, because of course we're all in lockdown, but are you downing tools and actually going, do you know what, this is an actual opportunity to connect with my family and have some fun and do things which we normally wouldn't do because I'd have excuses not to do it because I'm so busy working. So it's an easy thing that you can measure and manage, and then where you fall short, so then you can try and balance those things out.
Do you think do you regret 2016, or do you think without 2016 you wouldn't be where you are now?
I've never regretted anything I've done because I've been glad it's happened to me, and this is the most important thing. I wouldn't be where I am today had 2016 not happened. And I'm grateful for what would be looked at as, people seem to look at things as bad or good. Mm-hmm. But if a good thing comes from a bad situation, is it bad? No. So it all comes down to, people could look at this lockdown as being bad, but then there's somebody there who's more connected to their family than they've ever been. They're reading more books than they've ever done. They're learning new things that they've always wanted to do. And if you ask that person, is this a bad situation? They'll be like, no, this is a fucking awesome situation. Mm. So then you realize it's a perspective, because we choose how we interpret things. So once again, it just falls back on you.
Law of duality. 2016 was also a shift in your career, if I'm correct. And you pivoted out of the bodyboarding world.
I think my last show was in 2015 at the WBFF European Championships in London. And then after that, I didn't think about obviously finishing competing, but obviously I went on to build my gym and just change the way that I was focusing on challenging myself physically. I did a lot of the competing. It wasn't necessarily jumping on stage. It was just committing to something and challenging myself to achieve something. And a lot of that wasn't comparing myself with others. It was comparing myself with myself. Mm. And that's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed the challenge of getting myself in shape, or and competing on stage. And that kind of all changed when I did my first charity event. I think it was a realization that could scratch the itch of challenging myself into do something difficult, but also the benefits from doing that benefited a hell of a lot more people than myself, because to raise money for local charities and to see the look on their faces when they get a big fat check given to them is an amazing feeling. So it's being kind of selfish with pursuing challenges, but also selfish with it being for a good cause.
What have you carried over from the bodyboarding days to your present day?
The most successful people I know aren't always the most knowledgeable. They're just good at suffering. Mm. And some of the best physique athletes that I know, they're not the most knowledgeable. They're just very good at putting their head down and cracking on. And a lot of people that I've seen in business, they're not the most talented or smart people, but they have the most tenacity, determination, and grit. And I think that is a huge asset for people to be able to push past what other people think is impossible. And I've very much kind of pushed the boat out over the last few years with that by just questioning myself and saying I'm going to do something, not knowing how I'm going to do it. But as my good friend Ross Edgley says, you have to be naive to start something and stubborn to finish.
I like it. We always talk about the physical being the vehicle for the greater good. And I think a lot of it comes from when you do take yourself past what you expected, and then you suddenly realize you can do this in any area of your life.
Yeah. And it comes back to perspective. It does. Once you hit a certain level and know that you're able to do that, you have the confidence in knowing that you can achieve that. And we see this with both our body. Well, my three focuses is body, brain, and business. And I've seen this with all three. My first bodybuilding show, I thought there's no way I could get more condition with this because I've pushed myself so hard. And then my last show, I was 18 pounds lighter than my first show.
Yeah.
So it's a perspective change. My brain, I didn't think I could, push a sled 24 hours or run backwards for 24 hours or break a bloody box jump world record. But, once I start doing a bit more and realizing that I've got a bit more in the tank, you realize what you're made of, and you realize that actually I can do more. And then same with the business, what got me where I was when I started is not going to get me where I am today, because, a lot of fitness professionals that I speak to, they're at a stage where they're trading a lot of time for money. And they've always been in that kind of mindset of going, well, the only way I'm going to get more successful is to get more clients. And in actual fact, you just need to change your systems and your offering, and understand that you need to invest more in your business to potentially hire more people, hire more mentors, and actually charge more for what you're doing, maybe reduce down the clients or increase them through automation and systems. And learn to say no, which is one of the hardest things for successful people to do.
Absolutely. When you were in the bodybuilding world, and even now as a transformation coach, you're around the culture of dieting, rebounding, yo-yoing, the people that struggle, not only getting to shape, but staying there for a long time. What commonalities have you seen in those who succeed in this and those who fail and stay in that dieting cycle for a long time?
I think, firstly, I think a lot of people need to understand when it comes to like bodybuilding, it's got nothing to do with dieting or training. It's very much to do with suffering. And a lot of bodybuilders, the reason they do it is because nobody else can or wants to. And that becomes an identity of somebody who now has their confidence in being able to achieve something that nobody else can do because they don't want to do it. So if you're telling a hardcore bodybuilder that they don't need to eat chicken, broccoli, and brown rice 5 times a day and do 2 hours on a treadmill every morning, they don't care because you're not willing to do that and they are, which makes them happier. And that gives them their confidence, and they're more hardcore than you. And I think that's where people get a bit confused, because we don't do things logically, we do things emotionally. And I think that's one of the most important things you have to understand, especially where, people will argue about nutrition. You'll have someone say, well, as I do, I make jokes about keto being unsustainable, but you'll have somebody who's lost 150 pounds on keto, has reduced their type 2 diabetes, and it's completely rescued and changed their life. So when I'm having an argument with this person about keto being stupid, am I right? Potentially, but to that person, I couldn't be more wrong, because emotionally that's changed their way of thinking and it's changed their life. So I think a lot of people need to understand when it comes to changing minds on things and having a conversation with things is that you can't see a reflection in boiling water. So if you are emotionally charging people during a debate, especially online, nobody's going to win, because that you have time and Google to respond. So when everyone kind of comes to me with nutrition or stuff, as with anything, the answer is always it depends, because it depends on the context in which it's in. It depends on the journey of the person and where they are. And it depends on what the outcome is that they're looking to achieve, which a lot of people, if people are asking me, oh, Jamie, what diet do you have? That has no relevance to anybody whatsoever, because I'm a very different person to whoever is asking. Or should I do, HIIT training or LISS? It's kind of a silly question, because the answer is it depends. Because if you don't like doing HIIT training, then chances are you're probably not going to be consistent with it. And sometimes the best training program ever isn't the best one if you can't keep up with it. So I think that's where a lot of people get confused with nutrition and training, because they deal a lot in absolutes. They want absolute certainty that something is going to work. But just because you do something with success doesn't mean that it works for me.
Ultimately, it's about finding what works for your lifestyle and then being compliant over time.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes down to, I always say methods and fundamentals. There's many different methods to achieve a result, but there's very few fundamentals. So stop arguing about methods and start agreeing with fundamentals, and then finding the right method to achieve that fundamental. Fat loss. There's many different ways that you can achieve a calorie deficit, but the reality is if you're not in a calorie deficit, you won't achieve fat loss. So let's look at different ways that we can achieve fat loss that are enjoyable, maintainable, sustainable, and we can see ourselves doing it a year from now. And I think that's one of the most important things that people need to view when it comes to their nutrition. Can I see myself doing this next year?
Yeah. What are you personally challenging yourself on right now?
I think personal challenges is to continue to, I focus on all three. So body, brain, and business. When we look at my body, I'm challenging myself to progress with my physique during these difficult times. As I said, a lot of people are not in gyms. So I've kind of challenged myself to say you don't need a gym. So for myself and my sanity, I'm getting in shape at home. So that kind of keeps me accountable for that. Brain, I'm spending a lot of time practicing my routines, reading more books, creating more courses, building my business. And of course, with the business, very much focused at the moment of my Trainermind app, which is helping fitness professionals scale and grow their business. Continuing with my Train with Jay and my fat loss challenges, and just showing up every day and enjoying what it is that I do. No big crazy endurance events this year. However, in the pipeline for next year, potentially got something up my sleeve, along with a new book coming along.
Awesome. You're going to write another book?
Yeah, aiming for a 2022 release, because this is going to be a very kind of in-depth book on mental toughness, and very much going to be interviewing some of the top people around the world to try and create a Bible on mental robustness.
Awesome. What is your writing process out of interest? Now you've done 2 books.
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that, firstly, commitment to doing it is important. Small things done consistently produce big results. The success I had with the last book was to commit at the same time with the same routine every single morning to write a chapter. And that's what I did, 6 o'clock till 7 o'clock in the morning. I would have my weird ginger tea, a can of Red Bull, which sounds weird, but and I had the same binaural beats on. And then I would put an hour on the clock and I would just type for an hour. Most of it wouldn't make sense. Some of it would. And I would just put down what I had in my head. I'd have, the context of the chapter, and I'd just put it down. So I think that worked really well, is the fact that I just did 12 chapters of just whatever was in my head. And it comes down to just write it down, and then becomes the review. And that seems to work for me. But I think the hardest thing about writing a book is starting and holding yourself accountable. But that comes down to, making it kind of a smart goal, specific, measurable, attainable, and results based. So I like to put dates on things. Very much, I think it's Parkinson's law that says a task will take as long as the time in which it's given. So if you give yourself a time for things and tell tens of thousands of people that it's going to happen on a certain date, then you're kind of held accountable to make it happen.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did on mine. I said to everyone, 24th of May, that's the date. Yeah. And it's just like, there's no getting out of it.
Yep, exactly. And that was the biggest thing for me last year, because I launched Mindset with Muscle at the end of 2016. I needed to do it at Christmas the same time because it marked the 3 years with a new book. And it kind of solidified that this is the book that enabled me to, that 2019 was a busier year than 2016. And I wanted to get the book out to say, look, this is what I've learned from the last book. And it works because I've had a busier year in 2019 and I haven't had a meltdown. So it was important for me to get it out for Christmas, which I did. It was out on Christmas Day, which was amazing.
So you're going to make the next one Christmas Day 2022 then?
No, I think this one. I think this one's important to get out as a January book. I think with people starting new habits and routines, I think either January or April time. January is kind of a crap time because it's cold, it's dark, and the gyms are full pre-pandemic as we're speaking. So April's usually a good time when the sun starts coming out and people are in a better mood to learn. But we will say, I say April 2022 will probably be the launch date of it.
Did you find the editing process hard? Because that was brutal for me.
Yeah, I'm not very good at grammar. I'm terrible at spelling. I'm not a natural writer, more of a speaker and a video talker guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found it very challenging, and also sick to death of reading my own words. I think that was driving me up the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. How can people find out more about Jamie?
I think the easiest thing is just to search us on Instagram at Jay Alderton, JayAlderton. I post most of my good stuff there. And once again, if you just type in Jamie Alderton or Jay Alderton on Facebook, you'll find me. And I tune in if you do get up early for my morning talks.
Every day at 6:45 or 7
every day, yeah, every day around 6:45, 7 o'clock. Probably be getting earlier as the mornings get earlier because I like to do it at sunrise on the beach.
Awesome. Any parting words for the listeners today on staying strong through the pandemic and navigating themselves in the best way possible?
I very much say on the end of my podcast, what you put in your body affects how you look and how you feel, and what you put in your head affects what you think and what you do. These two variables are very important during this time. Although you might not want to do them, and although you might be gravitating towards the opposite, it's important to double down on your habits and routines and do the things that you don't want to do, because you know that if you do them, you'll feel better.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.